This gold standard QBank process, you'll come across various questions, various multiple choice questions on different topics that you'll find very useful for your preparation. So, let's begin the journey. Hello, welcome to the QBank session of PrepLadder. I'm Sharad Tripathi and I'll be teaching Science and Technology for UPSC preparation. And in this gold standard QBank process, you'll come across various questions, various multiple choice questions on different topics that you'll find very useful for your preparation. So, let's begin the journey with Science and Technology QBank. The first question that you will be seeing on your screen, it's about three-parent baby technology. So the question is, consider the following statements with respect to the three-parent baby technology. The first statement is, this technology will protect children from all genetic diseases. So the question, you have to get some indications from these statements that will guide you in selecting the correct option. So the statement says that this three-parent baby technology basically protects children from all the genetic diseases. This is a very highly superlative assessment. How can some technology protect you from all the genetic diseases? So you should be alarmed, you should be alert that something indicative is given in this option that you can eliminate. The second statement which is given is, it involves gene editing of the nuclear DNA of the biological mother. So these are the two statements and you have to choose if only first one is correct or the only second one is correct, or both the statements are correct or neither of them are correct. Now let's understand what is the correct answer and why is this the correct answer. So answer is D. Statement 1 is not correct. Why? Because under this three-parent baby technology, apart from receiving the usual nuclear DNA from its mother and father, the embryo would also include a small amount of healthy mitochondrial DNA from a woman donor. Now, when you'll study this three-parent baby technology in biotechnology section, you'll come across that why this three-parent baby concept is very, very useful for those mothers in particular who are suffering from some genetical disorders. And since mitochondria carries these issues, so if we can include a third woman and get mitochondria, the healthy mitochondria from that woman, and then we can include the three people, because father, mother and the third woman donor from where mitochondria is coming, then probably we can get rid of only those genetical disorders which the mother is carrying. So this is what is being described here. So embryo would also include a small amount of healthy mitochondrial DNA from a woman donor. This is resorted to when the actual mother is suffering from an incurable mitochondrial diseases. Other genetic diseases cannot be cured by this technique. This is focused on only that genetic disorder which the mother is carrying. That's why statement 1 was not correct. Statement 2 coincidentally is also incorrect in this question, because statement 2 overall says that there is some sort of gene editing which is involved in the process, but actually there is no gene editing involved. Gene editing is a different ball altogether, and we are just basically including a technology through which we can get rid of those mitochondrial disorders. We are not editing the genes in the mother. The problem remains with the mother, but we are just, through this 3-parent baby technology, we are just trying to stop those genetic disorders from being inherited by the offspring. That's the only aspect. So, there is no gene editing involved in this process. It involves removing the faulty mitochondrial DNA from the actual mother and nucleus from the mother's egg. Nucleus is perfectly all right, and nucleus is the genetic material basically. So, offspring will be technically connected to the mother. So, mitochondrial DNA from the donor, nucleus from the mother's egg, and the resultant egg, it gets fertilized with the sperm cell of the father, and it happens outside the body, which we call in vitro fertilization. So, this is what the process is, and there is no gene editing involved. That's why second option is not correct. Let's get into the second question. It is with respect to a technology called brain fingerprinting. It is always in news, a very emerging and a very sound technology, especially in the criminal overall investigations. It's becoming very, very important. So what the question is? Question says, consider the following statements regarding the brain fingerprinting technology, which is used in crime investigation. What are the statements? The first one is, this brain fingerprinting is also known as brain electrical oscillation signature profiling. So, factual thing, we should understand the various names of these technologies. So, is this brain fingerprinting is also known as brain electrical oscillation signature profiling. Second statement is, it is carried out through a process called electroencephalogram. So, this is again a factual input, whether brain fingerprinting is carried out through a process called electroencephalogram. Third statement is, the accused whose brain fingerprinting is going on, the accused cannot be convicted based on this test. So, these are the three statements, and again you have to select the correct statements. Options are 1 and 2 are correct, 2 and 3 are correct, 1, 3 is correct, and all the statements are correct. Now, let's understand the logic behind this question. So, answer is D. That means all the statements, they are correct. First statement, let's get into the statement. Brain fingerprinting is also known as brain electrical oscillation signature. Again, the factual input, you should get it correct. And this brain fingerprinting is a neuropsychological method used to interrogate an accused in the crime by studying his or her brain responses. The name itself suggests brain fingerprinting. So, when we are given a certain situation, someone is overall describing any scene, any criminal scene, which investigators, they think that something of that sort must have happened. So, in that process, when you were actually present at that site, suppose the person has committed the crime, and the crime scene is again reconstructed verbally or through pictures or through some animations, and the person is basically watching those events. So, the brain, it will respond in a different way. Suppose a person who is totally disconnected to that event, if you put that person in the same process, his or her brain will altogether be like, it will treat those things differently because you are not connected to. You will not try to memorize anything. So, your neurons movement, all those things which are technologically being captured, they will be different. And that's how you can sense. It's similar to like lie detector technique. where again through some inputs you try to ascertain whether a person is actually telling the truth or the person is lying. The same logic, but it is a neuro overall psychological method. So apart from neurological some inputs, psychological methods were also being used. Regarding statement 2, what we can sense, the test is carried out through a process called electroencephalogram. So that statement, that fact is also correct. And in this electroencephalogram process, the electrical behavior of the human brain is studied. This can be a different question altogether also in your prelims. What actually electroencephalogram, what it is all about? So it is about ascertaining or understanding the electrical behavior of the human brain, and this is the key technology in brain fingerprinting. The third statement, the test can only be used as an aid to question the accused. The accused cannot be convicted based on the test. The conviction should be done based on interrogation and other traditional legal practices. So, all these technology-based, you can say, criminal investigation tools, they all have the same story. You can perform these tests if it is lie detection or many other such technologies, they are in prevalence these days. You can take the help, but if someone in a lie detector test, it comes out that the person is lying, you cannot convict someone on the basis of that test. You have to get something which is admissible in the court of law as evidence and as per the Indian Evidence Act. So all these technological things, they are not admissible, but they may lead to, these technologies, they may lead to some further, you can say some further leads, which finally you can get some hardcore evidence which can be accepted in the court of law. So that was all about this question. Let's move to the third question. Artificial intelligence. The question is regarding artificial intelligence, which is again quite a popular technology tool these days. AI technology finds application in which of the following areas? So some areas are given and you have to just select what are the areas in which you find the usage of artificial intelligence. The first option was GPS mapping technology. The second was identity nutrient deficiencies in the soil. The third option was self-driving vehicles. So the options are quite wide. On one way, it's regarding the GPS mapping technology, whether artificial intelligence is used for GPS mapping technology. The second option, identifying nutrient deficiencies in the soil. So this is with regard to agriculture. Can we use artificial intelligence to identify what are the nutrients which are missing in the soil? And the third is the futuristic self-driving vehicles which Google and many other such technological giants, they are trying to develop. These vehicles, these self-driving vehicles, they are also using AI. Again, you have to choose the correct option, and the options were 1 only, 2 only, all 3 are correct, and 1 and 2 are correct, but the third one is not correct. Let's get into the explanation. The correct answer is C. Artificial intelligence is used to identify defects and nutrient deficiencies in the soil. This is done using a computer vision, robotics, and machine learning. So this statement tells you a broad idea, even if you have not studied artificial intelligence, but still you can see what are the possible application areas for AI in agriculture, in finding the nutrient deficiency in the soil. If AI can be used, then it's like a very, very enormous, huge opportunity is lying open with the advent of this artificial intelligence technology. AI can also analyze where weeds are growing. So weeds development, which again, it's agriculture, it's a very important aspect. So uncontrolled weeds development, they can also be overall ascertained by AI. And AI is used to build self-driving vehicles also. Artificial intelligence in self-driving cars can use a variety of sensors such as lasers, radars, cameras, and even sonar is used. AI can be used along with the vehicle's camera, radar, cloud services, GPS, and control signals to operate the vehicle. It is embedded in the recommendations received on the favorite streaming or shopping site, in GPS mapping technology, in the predictive text that completes our sentences. This all of you must have used directly or indirectly while typing your message. The suggestions which always pops in, they are also related to AI. So all these aspects, they are related to AI, and with this wide application area, you can definitely say that it's going to change our lives in a very huge way. Let's move on to the next question. Question is regarding the cloning technology, another very important aspect from biotechnology. So there are few statements were given regarding cloning technology, and we have to obviously, but here the trick is that you have to select incorrect statement. This is a very common mistake that we do in multiple choice questions. So just after reading the question, focus on whether the examiner is basically guiding you to select the correct statement or the incorrect ones. So in this statement, we have to select incorrect statements. First statement regarding cloning is, a mammalian clone named Dolly was first generated in the year 1996 using this technology. So the first mammalian clone was generated in the year 1996, and the name of that mammalian creature was Dolly. This was the first statement. Second statement is, the cloned animals are without any abnormalities. So these are the two statements. Whether Dolly, the first cloned sheep, it was generated in the year 1996, and second, the cloned animals are basically, they are perfectly pure organisms with no abnormalities, and we have to choose the incorrect statement. Let's get into the explanation part. Animals, let's learn a bit about cloning, because that's also the purpose of these question banks, because we not only we are testing your knowledge, we are giving you sufficient inputs also, so that if question comes on this topic, you will be able to get it right. So animals are cloned in one of the two popular ways. So there are two ways of doing cloning. The first one is called embryo twinning. It's also called embryo separation. It's also called embryo separation, the same thing. Embryo twinning or embryo separation. Scientists, what they do in this technology, they first split an embryo into half. So embryo gets separated into two parts. Those two halves are then placed in a mother's uterus. Each part of the embryo develops into a unique animal, and the two animals, they share the same genes. Actually, embryo is the net genetic material, and if you are basically at the very initial stage, if you are twinning or separating the embryo into two parts, and then those two parts, they are implanted in mother's uterus, and they during their life cycle, they develop into a full-fledged organism. So obviously, because they are sharing the same genetic material, they will be genetically identical to each other, and that's what we call a clone. So this is the one way of doing this, and we call it embryo twinning or embryo separation. The second technique is somatic cell nuclear transfer. Somatic cell nuclear transfer. This is the more prominent and the more recommended technology. In this technique, it consists of taking an egg cell and implanting a donor nucleus from a somatic cell. Somatic cells are all the cells that make up an organism but that are not sperm or egg cells. So, barring sperm cells or egg cells, rest all cells, they are what we call somatic cells, and you can take a somatic cell for implanting a donor nucleus, and then in the same way you can reproduce a clone. So, that's how cloning takes place. Now, let's get into the statement part. The first statement was correct. British biologist Ian Wilmot was the first to use the nuclear transfer of differentiated adult cells to generate a mammalian clone, a Finn Dorset sheep named Dolly, and it was born in 1996. So, this statement is perfectly alright. But keep in mind, we had to select the incorrect statement. So, this statement was correct, so that can't be our option. But second statement is obviously not correct, because various researchers have already demonstrated a number of abnormalities in cloned mice and other species, including obesity, pneumonia, liver dysfunctions, and premature death. Even the first cloned sheep, Dolly, which was put up in the first statement, she also had a lot of abnormalities and she also died quite prematurely. So, this statement that this cloned species, they are perfectly alright, they don't have any abnormalities, it is rather the contrary thing is correct, that we are able to produce cloned species, but there are a lot of issues, a lot of abnormalities which we are witnessing in these cloned animals. So, that's the reality. The next question, it is about honey pots. So, this is again something which you very often you see in newspapers. So, that's how UPSC captures the question. So, there are few statements given about this term honey pots. First statement is, it is a system intended to mimic likely targets of cyber attackers. It is used to block an impending cyber attack. These are the two statements regarding honey pots which were given, and you have to select the correct statement in this question. Options are first only, second only, both the statements are correct, and none of the statements are correct. Now, let's get into this. The correct answer was C. Statement 1 is correct. What is a honey pot? A honey pot is a system intended to mimic likely targets of cyber attackers for security researchers to monitor cyber criminal behavior. So, it's like giving these cyber criminals, it's a trap, sort of a trap, what they want to do. So, through their movement, through their strategy, if you want to address the problem, then you should be well versed with what are the ways through which these cyber criminals overall, they target various websites and such data. So, honey spot is sort of a system which is intended to mimic likely. Suppose the cyber criminals, they want to hack Indian Railways website. So, honey pot, it will be like something which will mimic a Indian Railway website, where these cyber criminals, they will try to attack, and through their movements, through their strategy, the institutions which are involved in preventing such cyber attacks, they will have a better know-how and they can be they can prepare such blueprints to overall avoid such cyber attacks. So that's what a honeypot is. Second statement was correct. Honeypots are used to trap attackers into thinking that they have penetrated a network, allowing time for defenders to analyze their threat parameters and generate appropriate threat indicators to block an impending attack. So, both the statements, they were correct, and that was the, you can say, a holistic information about this concept which we call honey pots. So that's how you can overall better your preparation for UPSC. We'll keep coming up with various questions on various topics so that you will be able to understand what sort of questions UPSC generally asks, what are the important topics that you should be covering in various topics, subtopics. So that was the whole purpose. I hope you like the question as well as the detailing part of it. See you again and keep connected to PrepLadder. Thank you so much.